I think we should probably start the webinar. So welcome so much to this webinar. This webinar is all about developing your legal skills to help you pass SQE2. So welcome. I know we have people from lots of different parts of their SQE journey joining us. Most of you are working, but not exclusively so. So I know we've got some undergraduates as well. So let me just do a little bit of housekeeping before we start. In terms of being able to access the webinar, I've added in captions for people just so you can access the webinar and hear what we're saying. It's not always 100% accurate, but hopefully that will help. We also will share the recording afterwards and the slides, so you'll be able to refer back to them. If anyone's got any difficulty accessing the webinar, please just pop a question in the chat for us and we'll see if we can help you out. The other thing to say is the chat is there for you to ask questions. We have asked you to submit a question as part of registration for the webinar, but this is really a forum for you to ask any questions you want of the panel here today. So please use it to ask as many questions you like, and we'll either pick them up as we go through the webinar, depending what it's about. We'll certainly have the end. The last thing to say is we shouldn't be taking up to hopefully more than an hour, I would think. We'll see how we go. Obviously, if there are people who wish to continue to ask questions, we'll be here for as long as you wish. But we're kind of hoping to get through the main content that we're presenting with you today. 50 minutes, and then we'll open up for more questions. So that's me. Perhaps we want to just make some introductions. Kick off.
Oh, I'm sorry, but my sound keeps going, so I wasn't sure if it was just me or whether it was anyone else as well. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, lovely. So hello everyone, my name is Sarah Taylor and I'm one of the programme leaders, as it shows on this slide, at the college. And part of my remit is to manage the SQE2 preparation course. So this is very much something that I'm interested in, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about that as we go through the webinar.
Thank you, Sarah. Dan?
Hi everyone, I'm Dan. I'm currently a student on the LLM course the college offers. I passed the SQE1 in July 2022 and SQE2 in April 2023 sittings, and I'm now a qualified solicitor. I'm looking forward to answering any questions later on in the webinar.
Thank you. And Jolie?
Hi everyone, my name is Jolie. So I'm the student recruitment manager at the college, and together with my colleague Sydney, we take care of any incoming inquiries, and we also oversee their journey from inquiries to applying to our programs. And I also look after the partnerships with different university law societies. Welcome everyone.
Thank you everybody. So yes, I'm Alice. I've been with the college for 4 years, and I look after the student recruitment and marketing at the college. So just moving on, I'll just run through quickly what we're going to cover today. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the college itself. You might be new to us, you may not know who we are or what we're about or who we work with. We then will talk a little bit about the SQE2 assessment, and Sarah will come on to talking about the SQE2 preparation course. Dan will then share with us his experiences of studying and taking SQE2, and we're going to have a demo of the course, that is the SQE2 course, and take any questions. We also will go through just a few of the different course options to help you decide which course might be the right one for you. So just starting at the beginning, the College of Legal Practice. So who are we? So we specialise in SQE. We have always designed training and delivered training for the SQE from the very first assessment. We have a parent company in Australia who has 50 years expertise in legal training, and they also really excel in online learning. So we've taken that online learning design and brought it to the UK for the SQE. In terms of our ethos and what we stand for, we really strive to help those who are looking to access the profession. We try and offer very flexible and affordable learning, and we really try and give you personalised and individual support. And you'll hear more about that as we go through the webinar. So we have a number of organisations that we work with, and the list is growing all the time, which is great. So you might recognize some of these. Some of them are universities that we're partnering with to deliver some modules for them or with them. And then others are organizations where we are helping train their trainees. And they may be trainees that have come through a recruitment process, or some of them like Clark Wilmot, they might be their paralegals and they're being trained on SQE and they're taking our part-time SQE preparation courses. So moving on to the SQE route qualification. I'm assuming because we're talking about SQE2 today that you probably are quite familiar with the SQE route, but just in case you're not, I know there are a couple of undergraduates on the call as well. So the 4 elements of the SQE route, they are much more simple than the LPC route, which gives you lots of options and flexibility. The first thing that you need is a degree, not a law degree, but a degree or equivalent. The second thing that you need to do is pass SQE1 and SQE2, and they are 2 separate central assessments. The third thing that you need to do is do your qualifying work experience. And this is where it is very different from the LPC route. As many of you know, you probably may already even have your qualifying work experience. So you can take your qualifying work experience before or during or after the SQE. If you'd like to hear more about qualifying work experience, we've got a QWE hub on our website, and you can read about lots and lots of details about that, and also advice on how to get legal work experience. So the SQE route is very flexible, and we're going to really focus in on SQE2 today. But if you do have any more questions about the route to qualification, we can either take them at the end or we can point you in the right direction. So Sarah, I'm just going to ask you to talk a little bit more about the SQE2, if that's okay.
Thank you, Alice. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'd just like to give you a really good overview of some of the key features of SQE2. As Alice said, it's a different approach now to the LPC. So as you're probably aware, the SQE2 is all geared about testing your legal skills in the 5 practice areas that underpin those legal skills. So the SRA have divided that into oral skills of client interviewing and advocacy, and then there are 4 written skills of drafting, research, legal writing, and case and matter analysis. And all of those skills are ones that you will be using in your day-to-day practice as a solicitor. So they're absolutely fundamental to that route to qualification and making sure that you have got a good grounding in those skills. The main difference between the way in which the SQE2 examines those skills from perhaps the LPC is the standard at which those skills are examined. So as it says here on the slide, the standard to which you're going to be examined is that of a day 1 solicitor, which is different from the LPC approach, which is geared at a day 1 trainee. So that standard is a little bit beyond the LPC. However, if you perhaps have already got the LPC under your belt, but perhaps you want to jump onto the SQE route to qualification, that grounding you've got in those 5 practice areas that make up the LPC also feature in SQE2 as well. So as you can see here, the 5 vocational practice areas are examined in SQE2, and those draw on all of that knowledge that you might have studied on the LPC, together with the knowledge that you will have acquired if you've done SQE1 first. So the SRA put you through a pretty rigorous examination process for SQE2, as it says here. The exam is divided into 16 assessment stations, 12 of which are designated on the written skills and 4 are on the oral skills. And there'll be a combination of the different practice areas that make up each of those assessment stations. In terms of where you sit the exams, the written assessments can be sat more or less anywhere in the world, as long as there is a Pearson VUE test centre in the relevant location. But the oral exams are based in England and Wales. You can see the 4 assessment station centres there. Manchester, London, Birmingham, as well as Cardiff. So that is a little bit more restrictive. So obviously, if you're based overseas, then that will mean travel to the UK for those oral assessments. The SRA have got 4 assessment points in the year at which you can sit SQE2. You'll see them there, but essentially every quarter, January, April, July, and October. And each of our preparation courses will lead to one of those assessment points. So we very much gear our SQE preparation courses towards one of those assessment points. I think that the Alice and Jolie will be touching on the sort of fees, but in terms of fees for SQE2, just to note that those are separate to any fees for the preparation courses. They're paid separately to the SRA, and you can see the fee structure there on this slide right at the bottom. So moving on to our SQE2 preparation course. So as it says, we really want to make sure you've got that good grounding in those 6 legal skills across those 5 practice areas. And they'll also be drawing on the other practice areas that make up SQE1. So in order to get you through the 6 skills in the 5 different practice areas, we've got 24 separate discrete study units to take you through each of those possible combinations. So as well as getting a grounding in all the skills through those 24 study units, it's really, really important that you keep on top of that SQE1 knowledge as well. So we always make sure that you've got access to all of the resources to keep on top of that legal knowledge, which is available through our SQE1 portal as well. So there's links to that legal knowledge. Obviously, in terms of skills, it's all about practicing those skills to make sure you're proficient in each of those skills that make up SQE2. So you'll have plenty of chance throughout the course to have multiple times to both practice the skills on your own through self-practice exercises, but also importantly, you'll have the ability to practice those skills with a supervisor, whether that's through written submissions in relation to the written skills or submissions to a supervisor in relation to the oral skills, and you'll get individual, bespoke, tailored feedback from the supervisor in relation to those submissions you make. Obviously, we want to make sure that you're gearing up in the right way to SQE2. So all of the materials, in particular, all of the sort of assessments that you'll undertake are designed to simulate as far as possible the type of questions that you're going to come across in SQE2. So by the end of the course, you'll have had plenty of exposure to SQE2 style assessments and plenty of practice to get you ready for SQE2. As well as having the individual online study units that you'll need to work your way through, you'll also have what it says here on the slide, regular practice area surgeries, so you can get in contact with a subject matter expert to ask questions, or to they'll be able to give you information about particularly difficult topics that students find challenging. And there's also a chance for the cohort to get together as a group through regular town hall meetings with the module leader. I've already mentioned that you're going to have access to all the online SQE1 resources. You'll also get a hard copy and electronic copy of our skills guide, which covers the foundations in relation to each of those skills. And I'll be showing you a little bit of that when it comes to the demonstration in a minute. We also pride ourselves on our tutor support throughout the course, so you'll have regular meetings with your one-to-one supervisor and personal tutor who will guide you through your progress on the course. And as it says on this slide, we make sure that every student has the opportunity to have the SQE2 ready review with your one-to-one supervisor at the end of the course, so that you can assess where you are in your preparation for the SQE2 exam. Just turning to the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that there are 3 course options, and Jolie will be going through each of those options in a little bit more detail a bit later on in the webinar, so that you can work out which option would best suit you depending on what commitments and what your lifestyle is. Just also wanted to mention, just have a look at that quote on the right-hand side of the screen. And I think that will resonate with Dan when he gives his feedback on and his tips on his experience on the SQE2. But I think this goes to show the level of support and the fact that the practice assessments, the mock assessments, were invaluable in getting ready for SQE2. And then finally, before I hand over to Dan, I just want to highlight here, obviously, the course fees, which are obviously separate to your SQE2 fees. And again, Jolie will be going through that in a little bit more detail. So I will now hand over to Dan, who is going to explain his student experience in relation to SQE2 and his journey on the LLM.
Thank you, Sarah. So yeah, I am Dan. I did the SQE2 with the College of Legal Practice as part of the LLM course that I am on, to sit the SQE2 exam in April and May of this year. The college were really good, I found, at building those legal skills and helping to prepare you for the SQE2 exam. I think one of the most helpful things, as Sarah touched on, was that regular contact with practicing lawyers who could give you that feedback on your work. And I know by engaging with them, they were really enthusiastic about supporting people and would often fire over extra tips and support by message if they'd thought of anything that would be helpful for you. And I think one of the things I'd really touch on before I go into any Q&A is it's about trusting the process. I probably went into the SQE2 thinking I'm not at all prepared for this. I don't know what on earth I'm going to do. But in reality, there was nothing that was unfamiliar. The college materials really did prepare me well, and obviously set me up for success with quite good scores on the SQE2.
Thanks, Dan. So what I'm going to do now is feel free to add any more questions into the chat. But we had some questions that came through, so I'm just going to ask you those, if that's all right, Dan. So the first couple are about the preparation course first. So what do you think were the key components to successful SQE2 preparation for you?
I think the first thing I would say is obviously engage with the course content. It's, as you'll see on the demonstration, probably it's structured in a way to help you keep focused on what you need to engage with. So for example, you have effectively a mock exam question to practice each week. I'm on the part-time course, I should say, so that may differ if you're on the full-time. And there's that ability to demonstrate and engage with tutors as a result of that. But they also had different activities you could practice to build on that skill. For success in preparation, I'd say obviously you then need to step out to that and make sure you're practicing the skill and keeping on top of your legal knowledge from SQE1. That's probably one of the things that I dipped on, and it knocked my confidence a lot, as I didn't feel like I had the legal knowledge, especially as I started the SQE2 preparation course. But the college providing the SQE1 material was really helpful there.
Okay, thank you. Is anything in terms of advice in addition to that for preparing for the actual exams?
I think for SQE2, and I'm not sure where everybody's at who's attending in their journey, but I found for SQE1, didn't bother with any kind of like note taking. I just focused on these are the practice questions, getting as many as I can. SQE2 is kind of a different ball game. It's much more useful to do those study notes, and the way I did it, I actually went to the SQE2 assessment specification where they break down all the functioning legal knowledge you need in bullet points, and I just made notes underneath each little subheading they had, so I knew I was covering everything that I might need to know and revisiting everything. The other thing I found really helpful for my functioning legal knowledge for SQE2 was flashcards. I did spaced repetition flashcards, which is effectively The software decides when you need to see it again based on how comfortable you are with the content. So those two tips are probably key for me for how I managed to, I would say, relearn, probably revisit my functioning legal knowledge, and then retain it for the SQE2. And then obviously don't then drop the skills. You need to practice the legal skills that you'll be learning as much as possible.
Thank you. Had a question in the chat actually. Did you study full-time or part-time, and how many hours did you commit to the course?
I studied part-time. I did that alongside full-time work. So to answer the last part, yes, I found it intense, but doable. In terms of hours I committed a week, it was probably between 15 and 20. It probably started to increase the closer I got to the exam, but 15 hours on average would probably be about right for what I did.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And in terms of someone asked how you draft your study notes. I mean, you've given some descriptions there. Is there anything you want to add in terms of the notes that you took and perhaps the revision that you did towards the end as well?
Yeah, I think the notes, I think obviously you have access to everything the college provides you with. I guess the key is condensing it down. You want to have as much as possible in it. Find what works for you. Some people love to do like big mind map posters of every legal principle on them for that area, for that practice area. That's great for me. I'm much more of a I'll come back to Rose's question maybe in a moment. I'm much more of a traditional, here's my small little booklet I've developed, which is like an index. I think it is that going back to basics, doing it yourself does really help with that memory retention. But yeah, my main tip would just be go back to that assessment specification and make sure you feel comfortable with each thing. And if you're not sure, do ask. I think one of the things I would look back on and say I should have done differently is make sure I ask the questions to the subject experts that the college give you access to, because they are there to help you. And I know I passed, and it's easy to look at fault, but there were a lot of things that I could have improved on during my preparation by just asking.
Okay, thank you. I've seen a couple of questions in the Q&A as well. So can I ask you this one, please? Which did you find harder, SQE1 or SQE2, and why?
Oh, I'm going to say SQE2, because I felt like there was just so much to remember and feel comfortable with. I kind of liked an SQE1 that I had the prompt if I wasn't sure, there was something to at least go back on. But in terms of how exhausting it was, SQE1 really does take its toll. And I performed better in SQE2 than I did SQE1. So
yeah, I think students have reflected on that. They don't have that security of, a choice of questions. There's nothing. There's no book, open book. There's nothing to support you, is there, on the actual time?
If I was to add that, one of the things I would say is, going into SQE2, you probably almost build up this perception of, I need to perfect everything, but it is split into your skills and your law. There are things where you can drop your knowledge on your legal knowledge, but still do a really good letter or research piece and still have that skill of what they're looking for and pass.
Thank you. You had a question. You took the exams in April and May. Did you have to do a retake, or did you pass first time?
I passed first time.
Yeah. Well, and how long did it take to receive your results? Which was a long time, wasn't it, Dan?
Ooh. Were my results in August, the end of August?
Sorry, and I think it's staying that way at the moment, at present, 14 to 18 weeks, I think. It's quite a long time.
Yeah. So my last exam, sorry, I'll answer this in full. My last exam was the 11th of May. I got my results on the 22nd of August.
And you became a solicitor very quickly after that, no? Had
It
your
was
QWE.
a matter of days afterwards. Yeah, I already had 2 years qualifying work experience. I work for Citizens Advice, which had given me, I've been there for about 9 years now, which has given me quite a lot of experience across different roles that are closely related to legal practice.
Thank you. And Rosie's question about how she's concerned she did the LPC 10 years ago and she has not retained much of her legal knowledge. So will she find the SQE2 too difficult?
And I don't know if Sarah wants to add anything to that, but what I would say is I came to the SQE having graduated from LLB law in 2016, and I found the college really provided everything I needed to revisit and relearn the law. And I know I had course mates who had done the LPC a long time ago and did go on to pass, but Sarah may be able to speak better to that.
I think that's, yeah, I was going to say, I think that's absolutely right, Dan. What I would say is for somebody in Rosie's position, perhaps choose one of the longer courses so that you've got more time to get on top of your legal knowledge. You've got all the materials there, but it's just a question of fitting it all in to get that legal knowledge back up to speed. So I would say the 20-week or the 40-week course will probably suit you more, because you will need to factor in a little bit more time just to get back up to speed with your SQE knowledge. But you've got all the resources to do it. It's just a question of time.
Thank you. Thank you for all your questions. That's great. I think we're going to just move on to the quick demo of the course now. And thank you, Dan. And then we'll certainly come on to some of these questions as we go through the course. So Sarah, over to you.
Well, and I'll pick up the point that I think is in the chat about recordings as well when I'm doing that. So just bear with me. I will just share my screen. So hopefully everyone can see my screen now, which essentially is what we call the landing page for Solicitors Legal Skills. So when you enroll on the course, this is the first place you'll get to if you come into the course. And essentially it's your go-to destination for all of the essential course information. And in particular, I wanted to sort of pick up on one of the sort of signposting that this page helps you with is to how you can allocate your study time. I know there was a question about how long you need to spend on each week on the course, and if you move down and scroll down, you'll see that there is a section on how you will study, and it gives you a breakdown of the different stages in your study approach, and how you can break down the timing of that into bite-sized chunks, so that you know roughly how long you'll be spending on each of the activities that make up each of the 24 study units. Obviously, some of you may spend slightly more or slightly less, and as I've said already, those of you who are perhaps coming on to SQE2 via the LPC will need to factor in a little bit more some more additional time to get on top of that functioning legal knowledge, in addition to the 1 or 2 hours that we recommend here that you would need for each study unit. So that would need to be factored in. So as Dan's already mentioned, the course, whichever version you use, is pretty intensive. So obviously a key to being successful is managing your time well on the course. So as well as these timings that we give you, we also give you access to a course calendar, which is broken down week by week to tell you exactly what you'll need to be studying in each week, and gives you access to all of the study units via the course calendar entries. In order to manage your time, you'll also have a to-do list, which will crop up and tell you everything you need to do for that particular week, and what's coming up in the coming weeks. And you can cross those off in your own version of Canvas once those to-do lists appear. You'll also get a notification as and when you've had feedback from your supervisors. So again, this is something that you can look out for when you make your submissions and get that individual feedback from your supervisors. Their feedback or a notification of their feedback will pop up on your homepage as well. So really, this is a really good landing page for you to keep on top of all of that essential information. I've already mentioned that there are 24 study units that make up the SQE2 preparation course, and you can see that there are links to all of these modules at the bottom of the home page. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you to one of the module links so that you can see how each of those study links work. So I'm going to show you the module that's called Client Interview in the Context of Property. So let's just go to the first page here. So each of the study units is made up in exactly the same way, and there's essentially 4 stages of learning for each study unit. And each study unit, the pages lead you step by step through each of those stages. So it's really important to begin with that you make sure that you understand exactly how the skill is going to work in the context of the property, in this case, in the context of the practice area, which in this case is property. So as a first port of call, you'll have some reading to start getting you into embedding that legal knowledge. But more importantly, there'll also be a demonstration of the skill from beginning to end, from the first initial email you get either from the secretary or from the partner, all the way through to the output that you're expected to perform. So in this case, it'll take you all the way through from how to conduct an interview. We'll show you how an interview could be conducted, and then it will also give you some written feedback in relation to how that interview should be conducted. So just in terms of some of the information that you get, so in terms of the instructions that you might receive, again, just to show you that this absolutely simulates the way in which you would get instructions, or the format of the instructions you'll get on SQE2. You'll see it's a set of instructions from a secretary telling you that they want you to carry out an interview, and it will give you some information as to what the client wants in relation to that interview. In terms of the information you get at the end of the process, and each activity has what we call an exemplar, which essentially is a document that breaks down how the interview or the demonstration that you have received meets each of the assessment criteria for the particular SQE2 assessment, each of the assessment stations. So in this case, it will take you step by step through each section of the interview and explain how the interview and the demonstration meets those criteria, so that you can use that for your reflection and taking that forward when you come to doing the exercises yourself. So once you have watched the demonstration, that's step 1. Step 2 will then take you on to what we call the builds. And as you can see across here, there are little buttons that will take you step by step through each of the stages of learning. So you'll have 2 build activities, which will have, again, instructions and then feedback in the form of an exemplar, so that enables you to develop your proficiency in the skills, but also in the legal knowledge as well. So it will take you through those build activities to enable you to obtain confidence in those skills. You'll then move on to what we call our self-assessments, so our self-practice exercises, which again simulate the type of activity that you will be looking at in SQE2. So you'll have an opportunity to undertake a simulated SQE2 style assessment, and then you mark it yourself by reference to the exemplar, similar to the one that I showed you just now, and that's your ability for your self-practice and reflection. And then the final stage, which is stage 4, is the all-important practice and feedback activity. And this essentially is your mock activity that enables you to practice an interview with a supervisor and get individual feedback from them on your performance in order to enable you to develop your skills further as you go through the course. As well as that individual feedback from the supervisor, you'll also get access to generic feedback in the way of an exemplar, which again will give you a breakdown of how the interview meets each of the assessment criteria, which will therefore give you a tick box for you to be able to, again, assess your own performance as well. And each of those 24 study units follows exactly the same process, stage 1 all the way through to stage 4. So you've got 24 opportunities for the builds, 24 opportunities for the self-assessments, and then you've got numerous activities in terms of the practice and feedback as well. So just in terms of looking at the resources that are available to you. So obviously the 24 study units are very much focused on the skills, but remember, obviously, you've got to keep on top of the legal knowledge. So we give you access, as we've already said, to all of the SQE1 materials. And so just show you here, you can see that you get access to each of the manuals in each of those 13 practice areas that make up SQE1. So you can, as Dan's already said, you can make notes from those and condense those down into revision notes for the purposes of SQE2. You've also got access to all of the videos and podcasts. Again, these are really good for giving you a really quick oversight in relation to the principles that make up each of the practice areas. So again, you might like to watch those, or you might want to have a look at the transcript, depending on what type of learner you are and what suits your learning style. So those are really good for a quick overview. And then, as Dan said, you've also got access to all of the activities. In particular, I think I would say I agree with Dan in relation to the flashcards. The flashcards are a really good way to revise and embed your functioning legal knowledge in relation to each of those 13 practice areas. And as you can see here, this is the property practice area, which has been broken down into each of the sections of the manual. So you've got flashcards and multiple choice questions that you can again use to test your legal knowledge in each of those areas of property practice. Finally, before I hand you over back to Alice, I'd just like you to, I mentioned that you have access to a hard copy and soft copy of your skills guide. So this is just the online version here, which again gives you information and guidance on how to approach each of the skills, giving you top tips, how to prepare effectively, and how to conduct the interview. So that will apply to all of your different skills. And then finally, we've introduced for this year onwards, we've also provided you with examples of written skills submissions in relation to each of the different categories of grade, so that you can see what to avoid and how to do well in each of your assessments as well. So that will help you as part of your practice and feedback. So that was everything on the quick demonstration. So I'll hand back to Alice.
Thanks, Sarah. I just wondered also whether you could just give a bit more detail around the online sessions that are recorded and aren't recorded. So the difference between if someone's working and trying to prioritize what they need to attend in the working day, what's your recommendation?
Okay, so what I would say is that the surgeries, the practice area surgeries and the town hall meetings, so all of the group meetings are recorded. So quite often we find that students do find it difficult to attend those sessions during the working day. So those recordings will be available more or less straight away, will be uploaded for you to watch through in your own time. The one thing I would say that you shouldn't miss, and I'm sure this is probably endorsed by Dan as well, is your practice and feedback sessions, because those are appointments that you have with your supervisor to get that individualized feedback. There might be the odd one that you can't make, and you can obviously speak to your supervisor about that to see if you can get written feedback, even if you can't make the the oral feedback session, but those are the ones that I would absolutely try and make if you can. They are during working hours, but most of them are only for 10-15 minutes each. So we obviously we ask students if they can have a word with their employer just to see if they can get that time out. You will need it a bit longer for the oral assessments, but we try and give you as much advance notice of that so you can perhaps take some time out in agreement with your employer as well. So the practice feedbacks are the ones that you really should try and attend.
And when you get access to the course the week before, the calendar is very much laid out for you. Not every single timing, but days of the week.
Absolutely.
The course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So right all the way from the beginning of the course, right the way through to the assessment week, you've got everything laid out for you. Yeah, so you can plan your time accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. I hope that helped people see the learning experience that they would have. And thank you. Do continue to pop your questions in the chat. We will get through them all. We're just going to move through a couple of other things in terms of detail of the courses. So hopefully that will answer some of your questions as well. So Jolie, if you want to move on to the next couple of slides, that would be great. So Shini, just to answer your question, the course fee does cover everything. So everything's included. So the hard copy manuals, the only thing is if you're based outside the UK, we do charge a postage, and some students just decide to have them electronically, but everything is included in the course otherwise.
Can I just yeah, sorry.
Yes, of course. Sorry, Sarah, go on.
What I would say, an SQE2, it's the skills guide that you get the hard copy of. All of the SLK manuals, so those revision resources are online only. So just so that you're aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to our kind of tips in terms of helping pass SQE2, and really what we've heard from our students and our supervisors. Jolie, are you able to move on to those slides? I'm wondering whether you could stop sharing, Sarah. There we go. Thank you. Here we go. So we've had the benefit of having students in every single SQE2 assessment, which is absolutely fantastic. And we've learned an awful lot from them. We listen to every student after the assessment and really try and help share their knowledge, their information. And Dan's been one of those students as well to help you all pass the SQE. So these are the things that we would say, both from our supervisors and also from our students, that you should really consider. So they do recommend preparing long in advance and making sure you're organized. And I think this is particularly true for all of you who are already working and really thinking about organizing and planning your time and having early discussions with your employer about when you can schedule in that time, giving them a bit of a heads up around the flexibility that you need when you're taking SQE2 and SQE1 actually as well, but even more so SQE2 because of the live assessment practice and feedbacks. The supervisors in particular recommend, if things are quite overwhelming for you, to break them down into bite-sized chunks. Attend the practice assessments. I think Dan would probably add to this that even if you don't feel ready for them, the recommendation is just do the assessments because you'll learn by doing them and you'll get your feedback. Students have fed back to us that you do need to increase your time for revision as you get closer to the exams, or at least they feel they need to increase it as well. Don't forget the legal knowledge. It's 50% of your marks. And do use your tutors and lean on them for personal support, and also your supervisors, as Dan mentioned, and do be kind to yourself. So, it is something where I think the more that you can prepare and understand the SQE2 and what you're going to be going through, and the more that you can organize yourself, your work commitments, your personal commitments, and your family for support, the better set up that you are for the SQE. Jolie, do you want to move on? And I'll pass over to you.
Great, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you so much, Alice, for the tip. And also thank you so much for Sarah and also Dan explaining a little bit more about the platform. And also Dan, thank you so much for sharing your journey with the college. So for now, I would like to encourage you to download our Secrets to SQE Success Guide if you haven't already done so. So basically, this is a guide that includes information and tips to help you study and pass the SQE SQE2. One thing that's worth mentioning is that all of the content comes from our students who have completed the course and also from the supervisors who have taught it. And so far, we have already received a lot of positive feedback about this guide. So if you haven't already done so, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen and share and download it. Okay. So moving on, I would like to really go through our college approach to helping you pass your SQE, which is the most important thing. Of course, Sarah has already mentioned a lot of top tips how the college can help you guys, but just wanted to highlight some points. So first and foremost, the most important thing is our flexible learning option, where you can schedule your study that fits around your schedule. And this has been shown on the demo that Sarah has showed us earlier, the calendar breakdown and also the timing where you can contribute into each of the activities. And also, as shown in the demo earlier, there will be multiple opportunities for you to undertake practice activities, which replicates the SQE2 assessment. And also, you will have the opportunity to receive individual feedback from experienced practitioners. In addition to that, you will also have one-to-one individual supervision and also live group sessions to support you and ensure you progress successfully throughout the whole course. And finally, as mentioned by Sarah again, you will also get the individual SQE ready reviews towards the end of the course, and there will be advices provided on the likelihood of passing the SQE assessment based on your performance throughout the course. So far, we have received very positive feedback from our SQE2 students about our approach in helping them prepare for the SQE2. And nearly all of our SQE2 students are reporting that they passed their SQE2. So it's very, very rewarding for the college to see that our students are highly satisfied about our courses and our approach, and that they think it's very, very helpful for them to pass their SQE. So moving forward, here is a table just to help you out to decide the right type of course for you. So most of our students are already working full-time, so it's always a little bit tricky for them when it comes to working out their study time. So you can have a look at our table. Hopefully it will give you some insights into what learning will look like if you enrolled into our 10 weeks or 20 weeks or 40 weeks courses. You can see the study time per week and also a little bit more details on our group live sessions and individual live sessions. As mentioned by Sarah earlier, our group live sessions are recorded, so it is flexible if you would like to fit them into your schedule, and individual ones will not be recorded. So for example, if you're ready to study full-time or you are working part-time and are able to contribute around 30 to 35 hours per week to study, and maybe our 10-week intensive course will be a suitable option for you. And one thing that is worth mentioning in the table is that no matter which type of course that you choose, either 10, 20, or 40 weeks, there will be a high level of one-to-one supervision from our tutors and supervisor. So therefore, you can see on the table that for each of our options, there will be a weekly practices and feedback sessions to make sure that you have plenty of opportunities to practice on the SQE2 assessment and also receive feedback from our supervisors. So moving on for the start date and also some important dates, you can see the start date of our courses here on this slide. Our course start dates are aligned with the SQE2 assessment dates. So for example, if you are looking to complete your SQE2 assessment in January or February time in 2024, and you're ready to commit around 35 hours per week to study a full-time prep course, then you might be considering our 23rd October start date. One thing to mention is that our 40 weeks part-time SQE2 prep course is still available for application for our 25th September start date, and the application is still open till this Friday. So if anyone would like to learn more about it and would like to apply, feel free to go on our website. But one thing to remember is that since it started, the courses are restarted, you will need to catch up on the first 2 weeks of the course content. So on the table, you can see that all of our SQE2 courses runs a rush to get into a course. Just make sure that you are ready before you commit into any of the courses, and we will be able to help you with any of your decision and help you through your SQE journey. And also, you don't have to note down all the start dates as well. As mentioned by Alice in the beginning, this presentation will be sent out to you after this webinar. So you will be able to find all the information about our start dates in the presentation and also our website. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Alice. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Jolie. Maybe all the panel want to come back together and we can just continue to answer some of the questions. Just on the slide before we disappear, if anyone does want a one-to-one chat, there's a QR code there. You can very welcome to book a chat in with Sydney or Jolie. And also we've got a LinkedIn group where we share information on the SQE. So feel free to join either of those. And as you can see, we're on socials as well if you'd like to follow us or our students, actually, like Dan, who are sharing their journeys. But yeah, thank you. So we've got a few more questions, which is good. So I'm going to just, I think, Sarah, maybe you haven't replied to everyone on this one. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more about these one-to-one appointments and how they work? This is for the individual feedback sessions, is it, from the supervisors?
Yeah, that's right. So as I said, you've got your mock assessments, which are your practice and feedback assessments. You'll have the one-to-one appointment with your supervisor, and those are fixed. So there'll be a schedule that will go up onto Canvas telling you your appointment time with your supervisor. And as I said, the written ones are normally sort of 10 to 15 minutes long. So we ask that perhaps you have a word with your employer if you need to get time off work. So those are fixed. We do, obviously, if you can't make that appointment, we do ask you to get in contact with your supervisor to let them know, and they will try, if they can, to rearrange that appointment. But they do have designated working hours with the college, so sometimes it's not always possible. But hopefully Dan will tell you that in his experience, they try to be as accommodating as they can be in relation to any rearrangements that need to be made. But the rest of the study unit, so all of those independent study elements of each study unit, so those stages 1 to 3 all the way through to your self-practices, those are all independent study, so you can fit those around all your other commitments and decide when you want to study those activities.
Thank you. Dan, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd just very briefly agree with what Sarah said. I did find that they were very flexible within reason if I wasn't able to make an assessment. But the one-to-one sessions are really there for you to develop and learn. So I think it was Alice maybe mentioned about going even if you haven't had the opportunity to fully complete the work or you're really not sure about it, because it's the place to get it wrong at the end of the day and the place to realize why you got it wrong. So I had my fair share of times where I either A, didn't have the time, or B, completely messed it up, and it was the best thing really because I still managed to speak to them about it.
Thank you. So Dan, I think there's a question here for you, if you don't mind answering another one. Did you do both SQE1 and 2? And how long did you take to study for the SQE2 exam? What general advice do you give to those doing the exam?
So yeah, I did do SQE1 and SQE2. I can't remember how long the course was. Does anyone want to help me?
It's 20 weeks long.
So yeah, around 20 weeks studying for the SQE2 exam. For general advice for doing both of the exams, I think the main thing I'll say to anyone is always practice as much as you can for both of them. So for SQE1, I tried to build in between 5 and 10 practice questions every day in my lunch break, which I think helped me a lot. And SQE2, I think it's a lot harder because you need to be regimented with your time to say, right, this is how I'm going to practice. My method was saving some of the stuff on the college's resources towards the end of the course. You have a gap before you actually sit the exam, and I managed to build myself some mini mock exams, and I used my mother-in-law to constantly test me with flashcards, and she played the role of judge and client quite often as well.
If you can do it in front of your mother-in-law, no, I shouldn't say that. You'll be
I'm
okay.
very lucky with a great mother-in-law.
Thank you, Dan. What percentage of students from the College of Legal Practice pass the SQE2? So just to answer that question, we don't have pass rates from the SRA. They don't share them with us. So we don't know. We do know that the students that talk to us and tell us that fortunately nearly all our SQE2 students who've told us have passed, but we can't categorically give you a pass rate. But we do get some really positive feedback, particularly on SQ2. And I think it's that individual support that we've spoken about that seems to make the difference. The levels of satisfaction, 4.3 I just saw for last year out of 5, the levels of student satisfaction with the course. So high levels, which is great. So there another question. Have we covered everything? What people can do if you wish, if you'd like to talk to us, if you'd like to practice your client interviewing techniques, feel free to put your hand up. I can actually allow anyone to speak. I know it's a small group, so if you'd like to, you can. Otherwise, you feel free to pop a couple more questions in the chat, because we're here to help.
I think there's a question in the Q&A about drafting from scratch.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't. Dan won't be able to answer whether he had to draft from scratch in the assessment, because all students are asked to sign confidentiality agreements about the content. But as you say, there is information on the SRA websites that you could be asked to draft from scratch. So that's something that we do cover, obviously, in our preparation course. You might be asked to amend a document, you might be asked to draft a form. So we try and expose you to as many different types of drafting across the different practice areas as possible, just to get you as ready as possible for SQE2. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Any more questions? Now's your chance. Is there anything, I did have a question I realized I didn't answer that someone submitted previously. I don't know if they're actually on this call, but someone did ask if we had degree awarding powers. I think there are a couple of students perhaps thinking about our LLM in legal practice, and we do have degree awarding powers. So whilst it's not a focus for SQ2, it does mean that we can offer that LLM in legal practice. And also a couple of people have asked about funding options, and the LLM is quite unique in the sense that the cost of the actual LLM course fee and the cost of the SQE assessments, which are separate, does come in under the full cost of the student loan, which is over £12,000. So that's a really helpful way that students have been able to fund their LLM. The other ways in which students look to fund, I guess, SQE2 is through spreading it out through the 40-week course and paying by instalments. That can help if you're working and you need to save up for both the SQE assessment and our courses. And then there are some scholarships available as well. Our scholarship rounds will be opening, I think, probably in November for the courses for February and March. Dan, do you want to add anything there in terms of the kind of funding options that have worked for you?
Yeah, so I'm on the LLM course and I'm reliant on the postgraduate loan, which meant that I could afford the SQE and the course fees as a result. I actually finished paying my tuition fees off today, so it was quite nice. Got my last lot of student loan in. But I think obviously a lot of people have a mixture of funding streams, whether it's through their employer grants or scholarships or the postgrad. I would say, I mean, when I was looking, there are course providers out there offering LLMs that are more than the postgrad loan offer from student finance. So if that's something that's important to you, then I'd definitely give the college a shout out for affordability.
Yeah, thank you. Rosie's just popped a question in the chat for us as well. So yeah, it is a lot to consider. The SQE2 course costs and the SQE2 assessment cost kind of doubles the cost that some people are expecting to take SQE2. And unfortunately with the SRA, my understanding is, Dan, if this is correct, you need to pay it in full when you book the course. Is that correct with the SRA? So there are considerations to make. I think that's why we focus in on our SQE Ready review. Is that right, Sarah? Just to try and also really acknowledge that the time and the costs that the students take to actually take the assessment, we really try and help them understand whether they're ready for it or not.
That's right. I mean, the SRA have unfortunately have recently changed their terms and conditions, so that the cancellation fee does go up quite quickly the closer you get to the assessment. But yeah, we try and do that SQE2 readiness review in time so that you can sort of cancel your place. You will have to pay a fee, but it might not be as much as cancelling it sort of a couple of weeks before the exam.
Yeah, we're very mindful of the cost taken, and particularly for SQ2, actually, hotels and travel and all of that as well. Thank you. I think the only thing I was just going to quickly ask you, Dan, actually, is we haven't really talked about the actual assessment itself. And for those of you who haven't taken SQE1, is there anything you want to share about the actual SQE2 assessment and the process when you actually go to the centre? I know you've written an article about it that we will share perhaps with the recording as well. But I think for some people who are unaware of it, it can be a bit of a shock.
Yeah, so for the written assessments, everything is in a Pearson VUE test centre. And if anyone's done like a driving theory test or similar, it's, you know, you go into a room, there's computers, you've got access to things like earplugs and that on your desk. But the software used is quite rigid and specific. So you can access a practice portal on the Pearson VUE website. I think the SRA website also links through to it, which kind of lets you see what you can do when you're on there. So, for example, you don't have like the full formatting options that you might be used to in Microsoft Office or whatever you use for work. But there are shortcuts, like you can copy and paste using Control and C. You can find for your research one using Control and F still. So I'd recommend having a practice before you go and sit so that you feel comfortable on the day. For the oral assessments, everything's paper based. You'll be taken to where you need to be. You'll have physical paper to see in front of you. The tip I would give to myself for the oral assessments is get used to timing yourself on a digital clock. Don't know why I had in my mind that I would have a timer going down. You just have a digital clock in front of you. So you need to just add 15 minutes to that before you start, or longer for the client interview. I think I always forget my times now that I've done it. But know how long you've got and work with it. Yeah.
I think familiarizing yourself with the assessment, you know, for SQ1 and SQ2, I think just helps. The registration process at the test centre is very, very official. The recommendation is do read the information that you're sent about that, so you're not surprised by the process that you go through, Sarah, when you get there.
I was going to say, we cover this, as Dan will say, an awful lot in our town hall meetings, particularly towards the latter end of the course. So we prime you to, as Dan says, practice using the Pearson VUE environment that you're going to be using. And we give you all the information about what to expect on the assessment day. So the more you read beforehand, hopefully it will help calm those nerves, at least from that aspect, when you get to the assessment centre. So yeah, that's a key, as well as all the knowledge, it's a key. The logistics is a key sort of part of getting ready for SQE2 as well, so you know what to expect.
Thank you. So there's a question here about booking to sit in April. When can you book the SQE2? Will it be January? I wonder.
Yeah, I was just trying to get the link to my computer's playing up, and I've just get on the SRA website. So the SRA, if somebody else can post the link, the SRA have got a really good page setting out all the information about when you can take the SQE. So if you're looking to do it in April, then the booking window will open in January, on the 10th of January, and then it will close on the 20th of March. So they have a very specific time period in which you can book onto each assessment point. But as hopefully somebody's be able to post the link into the chat. It's a really useful little place.
Yeah, there we go. And you can see the dates, because there's a lot of dates as well for you to start thinking about, isn't there? Dan, did you have any issues booking the SQE2, and was there enough space for bookings?
I didn't have any issues for SQE2 actually. I got through the queue on the day the booking window opened and was able to book at my preferred centres. I did have issues with SQE1 where I did book slightly later than the day it opened, and I had to travel further as a result of that. So I bear that in mind, but I know that constantly adding spaces as people cancel, etc. So if you don't get where you want to be, it's worth checking.
What I would say, is the SRA are adding more and more sort of dates to their calendar, sort of on a regular basis, and they've added an additional site for the oral assessments in Birmingham recently. So they are always sort of trying to keep on top of numbers, etc. But it is a first come, first served. So it's always better to try and book early if you have a specific place you want to go to.
Thank you. So if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to say thank you so much. If you do have any support that you're looking for, particularly to take the SQE, we're really keen to help make that work for you. We have had students who have various different individual needs and need reasonable adjustments, and we're really interested in hearing from anyone who feels like they want to learn with us but just wants to work through a few details. So please do get in contact with us if that's the case. Also join us on a one-to-one chat, or get in touch if we can help further. So I'd like to say thank you so much to everyone who joined us. Thank you, Jolie. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone, for coming along.
Okay,
thank you,
thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.